Welcome, everybody. This is our 6th meeting of the Lottery Trust Fund Task Force. Members and people in the audience, if you do have a cell phone, please put it on silence or turn it off during the duration of this meeting. Mariah, please call the roll.
Senator Boswell.
Here.
Senator Neal. Senator Tishner. Senator Wilson.
Here.
Representative Grossberg.
Present.
Representative Rawlings.
Here.
Representative Riley. Representative Timoney.
Here.
Co-Chair Deneen.
Here.
Co-Chair McCool.
Here.
Thank you. We do have a quorum. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the last meeting?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Minutes pass. All right, folks, we have today with us, this is our last presentation as the task force. This presentation is a continuation of our last meeting, so we want to welcome KYSTATS with us today. So please take a seat and make sure your lights are turned on, introduce yourselves, and we look forward to your presentation dealing with work-ready Kentucky scholarship programs.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having us back. I know it's only been a short time since we were here last, but we're happy to be back and to continue the presentation around Work Ready, this time being around Work Ready Dual Credit Scholarship. I am Matt Berry. I'm the Executive Director at the Kentucky Center for Statistics, and I'll have my colleagues introduce themselves to you, please.
I'm Beth Kelly. I am the Research Director at Kentucky Center for Statistics.
And I'm Becky Gilpatrick, Director of Student Aid at KIA.
So, excuse me, last time we were here, we were able to present on the Work Ready Kentucky Scholarship. Today we'll be presenting on the Work Ready Dual Credit Scholarship. Very similar names, so I'm going to try to not stumble over my words and say that incorrectly. I'll try to be as deliberate as possible about identifying which scholarship we're talking about. We're going to also talk about the dual credit scholarship a little bit today, just to provide some context. So again, we'll do our best to be as clear and direct as possible about which programs we're referring to. We'll have a similar approach to this presentation. I'll give a little bit of background on enrollment patterns and demographics for the Work Ready Dual Credit Scholarship. Then I'll turn to my colleague, Dr. Kelly, to look at some of the outcomes, which I think are really the primary questions that you all are interested in. And so I will go as quickly as I can without skipping over important information through my part, so we can turn it over to Dr. Kelly. So with that said, again, thank you for having us here, and I will jump into this information. So a little bit of background on the Work Ready Dual Credit Scholarship itself. We have several pieces of information on this slide. Some are budgetary and related to tuition. The top two lines, though, are really what I want to point your attention to for our conversation today, which are the programmatic design and eligibility pieces for the Work Ready Dual Credit Scholarship. So the first being that this scholarship provides 2 dual credit courses per year to Kentucky high school students in grades 9 through 12. So the grades will be important here in a minute when we provide a little bit more context. The other piece that I want to point your attention to is the type of courses which are approved for this scholarship. So this is limited to dual credit coursework that is a part of a KDE approved CTE, or Career and Technical Education, pathway. I'll refer to that as CTE to use the acronym so that I'm not redundant. But those are really, so it's about the grades and the type of coursework. Those are the pieces that I'd like to point out there. In terms of the numbers, so we're looking here at the 2018-19 academic year through the 2021 to 2022 academic year. In terms of our Work Ready Dual Credit Scholarship enrollment, you can see a pretty steady incline in terms of our enrollment numbers. So that first year of our data, about 4,800 individuals enrolled or took advantage of this scholarship. And in our most recent year of data, pulling from KIA's 2022 annual report, we were just over 15,000. So again, a steady increase over that 4 academic year period. In terms of the course categories in which students were enrolled and to which the scholarship was being applied, you can see here healthcare has a pretty significant or sizable lead over the other categories, followed by information technology, business, advanced manufacturing, construction, and education. Now, this is just for one academic year, I should mention. That is not cumulative over the 4 years that I showed you on the previous slide. This is for the most recent year, 2021 and 2022. But we did think it was important to sort of give some indication of the academic areas or the course categories to which this scholarship has been applied. Another piece of background and context, what we're looking at here are a couple of things. So along the bottom, again, we're looking at administration year starting in 2018-19 and then going up through the 2021-2022 year. The lines, the color lines, indicate the grade of recipients. And so with the exception of the first year here, you can see what I would say is probably what you would expect, that the percentage of students using this scholarship goes up as students are in their later grades. So 12th graders are the highest percentage, followed by 11th graders, 10th graders, and 9th graders after that first year. Now, some of this background we want to just provide some context around the Work Ready Dual Credit Scholarship itself. So we want to sort of acknowledge and mention that there is also a dual credit scholarship. And so moving forward, what I'm going to try to do so I don't say the words dual credit 200 times and confuse myself, quite honestly, I'll refer to the Work Ready Dual Credit Scholarship as the WKDC, and just use the acronym, and then I'll refer to the Dual Credit Scholarship. So that's how I'm going to try to differentiate and not trip myself up because I don't trust myself. So the differences here, again, similar information as to the first slide that I was our first background slide. But again, I want to point you to the sort of the top portion here. So the Dual Credit Scholarship is slightly different in the grades of eligibility and the type of coursework. So the first part here is referencing the fact that the Dual Credit Scholarship provides 2 dual credit courses to Kentucky high school students in grades 11 and 12, as opposed to 9 through 12. It is open to students in public schools, private schools, and homeschool. And students have to meet post-secondary admissions requirements to receive this. The rest of this information is related to discounted tuition rates and then some budget language, but I just wanted to mention that top part again to draw your attention to some context and some differences between the scholarships. We have a table here which again sort of further highlights that, and if you as you have time to look through the materials which have been provided, again, to highlight the differences and similarities here, dual credit scholarship being the blue column, Work Ready Dual Credit Scholarship or WKDC being KDS, being the yellow column. You can see really the differences again boil down to the grades which are eligible for these and the type of coursework.
I have a quick question on
Yes.
Can you go back down
Yes.
that slide? Up at the top where it says the dual credit scholarship program is not available to career and technical education. Can you expand on why that is, or what is there just not interest in that, or is there a problem with doing that? I'm just thinking along the vocational school route and students that may be in similar positions in high school as seniors, and if they can take a dual credit course that may relate to that transition. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, it's budget language. The changes that were made through the budget language during the last budget cycle, it expanded the eligibility on the dual credit scholarship side and made that eligible for 2 gen ed courses each year, 11th and 12th. So that pretty much limited that dual credit program to just the gen ed.
Okay.
Prior to that change, though, it was open, and there were students that were getting extra CTE courses instead of gen ed on that.
Okay. Thank you.
So moving forward, we wanted to look at dual credit coursework or dual credit enrollment by academic year over time. And so again, really the story here is we've tried to also indicate the years in which the dual credit scholarship and the WKDC began. And you can see in general from 2014 to 2022, a pretty steady upward trajectory. There was a slight decline in 2021, but it's gone back up. So in general, enrollment in total has gone from about 21,000 or 21,500 to just shy of 40,000. If we were to look at these, if we take these 2 programs back apart and compare them just for context, again, not to make any sort of evaluation of any kind, but just to compare them for context, You can see a couple of things here. Obviously, they're starting at different times, 2017 and 2019, and the scale being different just in terms of enrollment. And so the Work Ready Dual Credit Scholarship, which is really the primary focus of what we're here to discuss, starting at about 4,800, as I showed you on one of the first slides, and then continuing to move up, past 15,000 and now to about 19,000 in the most recent year of data. So to provide even a little bit more context, just as some background, we wanted to look at some demographics to get a better idea of sort of who is taking advantage of these scholarships. And we, because there can be overlap in terms of who can take advantage of which scholarships, and meaning you could take advantage of multiple scholarships as an individual, what we try to do is identify individuals who were in 5 separate categories, just to provide a better understanding of kind of what we think are some important comparisons for these scholarship groups. So we looked at all high school graduates from 2019 to 2022. That's sort of our largest comparison group. We looked at graduates who received the WKDC at some point, those who received only the WKDC and not the dual credit scholarship, those who received both the dual credit scholarship and WKDC, and then those who only received the dual credit scholarship and not the Work Ready Dual Credit Scholarship. So it'll make more sense on some of these bar charts. I promise that's a little bit of a mouthful for me to go through. But again, we try to provide these for some comparison and context sake. So in each of these next few slides, again, we wanted to look at some demographic comparisons just to see sort of who has been enrolling over time. The orange bar will be sort of our, I think, primary point of focus, which is graduates who received the Work Ready Dual Credit at some point. And then you can see the 4 other groups, with all high school graduates, our biggest group, being on the far left. You can see the other 3, and that is how we'll structure each of the next few slides. So first, we wanted to look at the demographics of sex and look at female and male enrollees. And what you can see here is that just shy of 60% of students who were Work Ready Dual Credit at some point were female. And so that, if you look at all high school graduates as an example for comparison, that is higher as compared to just about 50% of all high school graduates. We wanted to look at some racial demographics, at least one look at it, and look at the percent of students who were white. So about 82% as compared to about 78% were white. So a higher percentage of Work Ready Dual Credit students were white as compared to all high school graduates. Again, we wanted to look at free or reduced price lunch as a proxy for income or household income. Not a perfect proxy, but one that does, I think, relatively well. And you can see that a lower percentage of WKDC recipients, those who received it at some point, were free or reduced price lunch as compared to all high school graduates. And then finally, we wanted to look at take a regional approach, at least an overview of the regional approach, and look at the percent of students who were from our Appalachian region. And that's relatively close across these 5 categories, with the WKDC at some point being 26%, so slightly lower than all high school graduates. So again, that's a lot of sort of background information, I know, and I tried to get through that relatively quickly so that we can move into some of these outcomes that Dr. Kelly will work through and describe right now.
And I'll try to not talk too fast. I tend to do that.
Before we have your testimony, is there any questions that we have? We do have a couple. Representative McCool.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dual credit is a good thing, and if our expected outcome is to increase that number, we're doing very well. Will there be a point in time to dive a little deeper into and see if those who have completed dual credit have continued on into higher education, and whether or not it's working on that end? I don't know if we have enough data to do that yet, but is that a possibility?
So we're going to look at post-secondary
Follow-up.
enrollment right after high school graduation. The scholarship just started in 2019. So even for those 2019 high school graduates, it's only 2023. So we can't go out far enough to even say, did they get a bachelor's degree? We haven't given them enough time. So eventually, once we get more data, but just like last time, I will outline some of our limitations from the not only KYSTATS data, but just in general, given the length of time that this scholarship has been around.
Thank you. I just thought it's in a radar screen, though. Perhaps
Yeah.
we can check it later. Thank you.
Senator Neal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was just curious. I was looking at this breakout, and you broke this down into female, white, etc. Is there a demographic that deals with individuals of color or black? Or
Can you check your microphone, Senator Neal, make sure it's on?
it is.
Thank you.
I'm probably not
Maybe
close
just pull
enough.
it closer
Did
there.
you hear
Thank
me?
you. Yes, sir.
We heard you. Yeah.
I was just wondering, is that reflected somewhere, or I miss it?
It is not reflected in the presentation. We do have those values if you would like those provided.
Why would it not be in the presentation?
So in terms of when we are looking at just a snapshot and trying to see overall what's happening, we were just trying to give the snapshot. We are happy to provide that information.
Well, thank you, but I'd ask you to, when you do that snapshot or otherwise, to have complete information because all of it's relevant, I would think. Do you not agree?
It's a fair point. And we will absolutely be sure to include that in presentations moving forward.
Thank you.
Senator Tishner.
Thank you. Just a really quick question. The graph that maps out from 2014 to 2022, before the dual credit scholarship was offered, were students just paying for those courses?
It could have been a combination of students paying for them, school districts paying for them.
Okay.
Each school district was kind of making their own deal with local post-secondary partners. So
Okay.
we really don't know all the scenarios that were happening out there.
Okay. And the partners are through KCTCS, U of L. Is it just a variety of universities that offer these dual credit courses?
It is, yes, all the public universities, all the KCTCS campuses, and a number of the private institutions.
Okay. Thank you.
Senator Boswell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, when you talk about this graph on the reduced lunches, free or reduced price lunches, I believe, I may be wrong about this, but I believe there are entire counties, no matter what your status is, where you receive the free or reduced lunches. So how do you evaluate a situation like that where the entire county is receiving free or reduced lunches?
So we do have eligibility. So it's not receiving, it's eligibility. And so students are eligible for reasons such as being on Medicaid or receiving SNAP benefits or so forth. And the Department of Education does get that information. So when we're looking at the data, we are looking at the data from that indication as opposed to the whole district, say, being identified as being eligible.
Without any further questions, we can continue. Anybody else? All right, let's move forward.
Okay. So the next thing that we want to do, which is really why we were asked to come talk, is to talk about the outcomes. So we're going to break these into 3 groups. One is going to be achievement while in high school. So that would be maybe mean semesters of each award. Also, we're going to talk about credit hours earned by high school graduation, and also earning an associate degree by high school graduation. So we'll also have college-going behavior. So this would be immediate college enrollment, and also for those that did enroll in post-secondary, did they persist to the second year? And then, of course, we'll have employment outcomes, employment rates, wages, and then broken out by major industry. So to acknowledge our data limitations, we've already addressed this, but WKDC started in the 2018-19 academic year, so this is much harder to look at over time. We've got several metrics that are only available for public post-secondary institutions, such as credit hours we can only see for public institutions. Our employment is only known for unemployment insurance covered employers, and that is only in Kentucky. There is no direct link from academic area to major industry, so when we're looking at where those students were enrolled, as part of their career and technical education. We can't directly link that to a major industry. And we know major industry of employment. We do not know their occupations. We just know what industry they're employed in. So what we're going to get to now are those high school metrics. So first of all, in terms of how many award semesters they have for students that receive a WKDC scholarship, it's usually between 1 and 2 semesters of award. The same thing happens for dual credit scholarship, and those students that receive both, generally it's closer to 3 semesters of award. So the other thing is that we want to talk about how many credits are earned by high school graduation. So we're going to look at most of what we're going to look at is all high school students versus WKDC, and every time there's something sort of notable, we're going to point that out. So here we have a line graph of our credit hours earned over time by graduates. So we're going to concentrate on that green line and the gray line. The gray line represents all high school students over time. So, for example, in 2014, the average number of high school credit hours earned by those high school graduates was 8.27 credit hours. If we go all the way over to the 2021-22 academic year, all high school graduates had an average of 12.38 credit hours. So then if we want to look at WKDC recipients, that's the green line. When we're in 21-22 academic year, those students earned a little less than 14 credit hours on average by high school graduation. So if we want to look at sort of what might pop out to you on that line graph also, that top line, those are people that received both WKDC and dual credit scholarship, while the one at the bottom, so say those are people that only received Work Ready Kentucky scholarship, dual credit scholarship, and not dual credit scholarship. So they're receiving about half of what all high school students overall are. So the last high school metric we want to talk about is how many people earned an associate degree by high school graduation. So again, we're going to look at high school graduates. Overall, they're receiving associate degrees by graduation at a rate of about 3.8%. Excuse me, that was for people that received both scholarships. And then if we want to look at only WKDC recipients, that's going to be a lot lower, less than 0.5%. So again, let's look at a graph to see what that looks like. So if we look at the gray line, we've got all high school students in the graduating class of 2014, only 0.1% or 1 out of 1,000 high school graduates received an associate degree by high school graduation. We go all the way over to 2022, that number has raised to 0.7% or 7 out of every 1,000 high school graduates. If we look at the green line, those are the WKDC recipients at some point in the 2021-2022 academic year. Those high school graduates earned an associate degree at a rate of 2.7%. You will notice that absent are graduates who only received WKDC, and that is due to our suppression rules. We may not show any values that are less than 10, so that means that every year, all of these graduates, less than 10 of them received an associate degree by high school graduation. Okay, so we talked about our high school metrics. Now we're going to look at college-going behavior. So we want to look at immediate enrollment after high school. This is the academic year directly following, whether it be fall or spring. Concentrating on that gray line, that is all high school graduates overall. So in 2014, those graduates went to college at a rate of 62.1%, and then going all the way out to 2022 graduates, they're enrolling in college at a rate of 54.4%. And then the green line, those are WKDC recipients overall, where in 2022 they are enrolling in post-secondary at a rate of 73.6%. And then we have the splitting apart of those subgroups as well, with the ones that only receive the WKDC, very close to the high school students, and those that received the dual credit scholarship, those are right there together, whether or not they received WKDC. We look at second year persistence. We want to look at, of those people that enrolled right after college, how many persisted to the second year? Okay, did they stay? So looking at that gray line of all high school students that enrolled, 2022, 69.2% of them stayed. And then again, we have the split where we look at all WKDC recipients, their second year persistence is about 76%. And then we split between those that received dual credit scholarship and those that didn't. And then the third outcome that we want to highlight is about employment. So the first thing we want to do is employment rate. So again, starting with all high school graduates over there on the left, and in the orange we have graduates who received WKDC at some point. So we see all three of those groups in the middle are all students that received WKDC. So we've got employment rates of over 77%. Out of all high school students, we have 72.3%. And the ones that only received dual credit scholarship are in the middle. So the one thing I want to point out here, this is employment for only those students that did not enroll in post-secondary, because they do have different employment behaviors. So when we're talking about on the employment section, we're only talking about those that did not enroll in post-secondary right after college. So we want to talk about employment rates. Now we want to talk about wages. So when we're talking about wages, we want to know the median earnings the year after high school for those that did not enroll in post-secondary. So if we look at all high school students, their median wages the year after high school graduation was a little over $12,000 in that year. And then all of the group that received WKDC, that's over $17,000, and it's also over $17,000 for both groups broken out, with those that received dual credit scholarship only somewhere in the middle. I will say these are adjusted to 2022 dollars, so they are comparable across all graduation years. So then we want to break it out by major industry too. So we've got those 5 groups. If we want to look at the top 2 major industries of employment, for all 5 of them, they are retail, trade, and accommodation and food services. If we want to then look at the third largest, those 3 groups that received WKDC, or we can just look at WKDC recipients overall, the third largest is manufacturing. Of those that were all high school students or dual credit scholarship only, their largest major industry, and forgive me, this is really long, is administrative and support and waste management and remediation services. It's probably the only time I'll say all of that. But so we're going to look at employment rates among those. So among all of them, we have that retail trade is the highest employment industry. So for all high school graduates, we can look there and we see 21.8% for retail trade, 21.3% for accommodation and food services, and for that third category, we have 15.9%. That's almost 60% of their employment are in those 3 industries. And then if we look at the WKDC recipients, we have similar trends. This is just over 50% of their employment are in those 3 industries. We want to look at now at their wages among those 3 industries. So if we look at retail trade, all high school graduates, their median wages in retail trade was a little less than $11,000. And then we look at all these WKDC recipients, they are all around $14,000, with those dual credit only recipients somewhere in the middle. The trend continues for accommodation and food services. And then we have the manufacturing. Of course, that's the third largest only for the WKDC recipients. Those are $27,000-ish, and a little lower and a little higher for those broken out groups. Whereas the third largest industry for the other 2 groups, we have median wages of 95,000, or excuse me, 9,500 for all high school graduates. I want that job if it's 95,000. And then, less than 13,000 for those students that received dual credit scholarship only. Okay. So we've tried to sort of package this up so you could get some context. We are seeing that the number of recipients are increasing over time quite a bit. And when we looked at those academic outcomes, we saw something very different for those students that only received the WKDC scholarship. They had a lower amount of credit hours by high school graduation, lower amounts of associate degrees earned. Their college going rates were lower. Their second year persistence rates were also lower. And I'm just pointing this out because it is notable. But we look at the employment rates for WKDC recipients, they are greater for those that are not enrolled in post-secondary, and their wages 1 year after graduation are also greater. And that is both by overall and broken out by major industry. So with that, we are happy to take any questions that you have.
Senator Boswell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I had a question about those who are earning associate degrees in high school. I guess I'm kind of old, but when I was in high school, we didn't have time to take college courses unless you went after school. Mm-hmm. And as I know as time going on, especially some of the students who are doing quite well are able to earn AP credits. I know my son had at least a solid semester of AP credits when he went to UK. Mm-hmm. And so, but now, if I understand you correctly, there's a lot of people that are gaining associate degrees during high school. And I'm having a little trouble understanding exactly how this is going on, because it seems like to me, I have a lot of grandkids in high school now, and it seems like I call up a lot of times and they're out of school. And I'm like, how does this happen? Are we lowering our standards for high school education? That's just, I know that's not a specific question of what you're talking about, but it just interests me that we're getting all these associate degrees in high school. Are they for kids that are at a higher learning and are getting much higher grades, or is it just in general that they're able to get these general courses out of the way so they have an associate degree?
I can answer a little bit of that. Coming from education, we have a lot of different schedules for high school students. Some schools are on block scheduling, some are on 6-period days, some on 7-period days. So there's a lot of different schedules throughout the state that in some instances allow students, for example, block scheduling may allow for more leeway in your senior year to take additional courses, electives, and also, in this case, maybe dual credit courses. But I know that for sure, but I don't know if you all want to add anything to that, but I do know that scheduling sometimes has that, and sometimes it's a matter of advanced students that are moving through the curriculum at a good pace. And the greatest thing I think about the Work Ready dual credit program is it's not necessarily for just your advanced students. There are students out there that are taking a course in high school that correlates and that can achieve dual credit. So
I just want to make sure that the students are getting these associate degrees, that they're earning them.
So they're earning these through college credit courses. So these are the dual credit courses.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah. I'll also add, there has been more discussion since we've started putting state dollars behind these scholarships surrounding making good choices with the classes that they're taking. And I'll say KCTCS in particular does a really nice job of kind of mapping that out for students so they know in the 9th grade they need to take these classes and in the 10th this, and how to add it and how to navigate everything through so that they can end up with that associate degree if that's what they want.
any further questions from our presentation? All right. Thank you all so much. I know you've been a great help to this committee throughout the entire interim session. You all have come before us several times and to help educate our own committee members, but to share with us what you do and how you do it. And so I just want to say I'm thankful for your presentations throughout the interim. Thank you for helping us try to figure out the best way that we can help our students. And so thank you so much. I'm very glad you were here with us today and yesterday and many other days. So thank you all. With that said, folks, throughout the interim, we've heard testimony on from various stakeholders and agencies and experts to look at the issues related to our lottery trust fund and the various educational programs the fund supports. Based on that testimony and after reviewing suggestions from our membership and executive branch agencies, my co-chair and I, with all of those consultations, have developed a memorandum outlining recommended actions for the Legislative Research Commission and the General Assembly. I believe everybody was sent this in an email, so I hope you had time to review some of these recommended actions. Those proposed recommendations have been, again, sent to you all. If you have any questions in regard to those recommendations at this time.
Motion to approve.
All right, awesome. We have a motion to approve them. Second. We have a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, the recommendations have passed, and we will send those on. So with that being said, I do want to take just a minute to thank our staff for what you've done throughout the interim. You have been wonderful to work with. We do appreciate all of your hard work, and thank you for helping all of us figure out how we can help our students. So thank you all.